So, hello and welcome to another Flower of Light Mystery School podcast. And with me again is Christine.
Good afternoon.
And Charlotte.
Hello there.
Hello. So we just kind of want to have a chat really about, we'll just flow into it, I suppose.
It's not linear. It's not confined by linear points.
No, definitely not.
We actually were speaking about something before we started recording, so we might just pick up where we left off.
True, yeah, which was, we were talking about the whole concept of which would be embedded in kind of the mythology of, let's say, for example, Moses and Moses climbing up the mountain. So what I had been talking about was the Great Pyramid and how the Great Pyramid was a description of God, if you want to put it that way, or source awareness, whatever you want to call God yourself, whatever source awareness, consciousness, whatever feels comfortable. So the Great Pyramid is a description, let's say, maybe a description is the wrong word, but a model maybe of God consciousness or God in stone.
Because of the geometry and everything involved with it.
Yes. And the idea of, say, for example, building the pyramid, you know, from the bottom up, brick by brick.
Yes.
Until you reach the top.
The capstone.
And the last stone, the capstone, which is the stone that the builders rejected. That's what they say in the Bible.
Rejected.
It was the stone that the builders rejected.
Because Jesus
refers to himself as the stone that the builders rejected.
Yes, that's true.
Does he?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Which is referring to the capstone.
Uh-huh.
Or, as they say, the all-seeing eye. You know, the way you see it on the... Well, I don't like to compare it to the $1 bill, but most people will be familiar with the appearance of the Great Pyramid and then the capstone decapitated, in other words, taken away from the Great Pyramid.
On top of it.
And it's floating over it. It's not sitting on the top of it.
Not connected.
It's not connected to it. And it has an all-seeing eye. I'm sure most people are familiar. Yes. And if not, maybe if you want to look at the dollar bill, the $1 bill, you'll see it. So, that was something that somebody actually had said to me today about how the pyramid could possibly be a description of God in stone. And the person that said it to me said more, I think, than they realised themselves, because there's actually been things written in terms of, and one of the things I talk about a lot is the book of Coming Forth by Light. And I have probably mentioned before in podcasts that the book of Coming Forth by Light is the Great Pyramid in stone. Or in other words, the Great Pyramid is the book of Coming Forth by Light in stone.
Yeah, it works for both ways.
Exactly. So, what I want to talk about is, for example, in the Bible, okay? And the Bible, if we think of the word Bible and we think of Babel, so Bible and Babel are really the same word. Now, if we think about the Tower of Babel, but it's not a story I want to get into too much because I think I've talked about it before, but the Tower of Babel is told in the Bible, the story, and briefly it suggests that there was a universal language before the construction of all the different languages that we know today. And it was one universal language that everybody understood and used to communicate with each other. And so all of humanity came together to build the Tower of Babel. And that was a tower that was to reach God. And so it says in the Bible that the gods held council. In other words, they had a meeting. And they looked down and said, we better go down and do something about the building of this tower.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, they are going to become just like us, or even better.
Yeah.
So the gods came down and broke the tower. Why? They broke the tower so that humanity could never come together again in cooperation to build a tower that would reach God. And to make sure that they couldn't, they decided, you know what we'll do as well? See that one language that they use to understand each other? That's how they built this tower. Because they could all understand this one language.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So as well as breaking down the tower, we need to confuse the language. So they confused the language. The one language was then turned into or confused into 72 other languages. And then, just to make sure, they said, and now, after breaking down the tower and confusing one language by changing it into 72, what we're also going to do is we're going to get this one group of people and we're going to scatter them to the four corners of the earth. So no longer will they ever be able to come together in cooperation to build a tower that can reach God. And even if they do come together, they're not going to understand each other anyway, because they don't speak the same language. So anyway, that's the story of the Tower of Babel.
But it separates everyone now still. Unless you want to learn another language. But it's difficult.
Well, that's the story of the Tower of Babel. And of course, all those stories are, I mean, they're never meant to be taken literally. Yeah. They're all metaphors and symbolic, and you're meant to read between the lines, you know.
Yes.
Allegories, very good. So anyway, the Bible and Babel.
The Babel.
Are kind of, you know, it's okay. I'll leave it to yourself to think about that one. So in the Bible, there's the story of Moses, okay, who goes up the mountain. Now,
with a burning bush.
And the Great Pyramid, okay, in the Bible. In the Bible, it says, it calls the Great Pyramid the Mountain of God.
Yeah, the Mountain of God. Yes.
Okay.
But in the story, it's not directly the pyramid, but we can infer that it means the pyramid.
I'll tell you what it says. It says, in the land of Egypt, there is an altar to the Lord, a mountain to God. And it's in the midst and the borders, and on the borders thereof. Okay? That's what it says in the Bible. But there's only one structure on earth that's in the midst of something and on the border of something at the same time. There's only one structure on earth that fits that description. What is that?
Well,
the Great Pyramid.
The Great Pyramid. And I'll tell you how. If you remember, we talked about the Great Pyramid being in the direct center of the Earth's landmass.
That's right.
In other words, if you were to find the longest line of longitude, which is the 0 degree meridian line, which runs around the Earth and covers the most amount of landmass on the Earth, and if you were to find the latitudinal line that covers the most amount of landmass on the Earth, where both of those lines intersect is where the Great Pyramid is placed. So the Great Pyramid sits at the very direct center of the Earth's landmass, where the two lines of longitude and latitude meet. The 0 degree meridian line cuts the Great Pyramid, the King's Chamber, and the sarcophagus itself. In other words, if you were lying in the sarcophagus, the 0 degree meridian line would run straight through your belly button.
Yeah, exactly.
Your solar plexus.
It's like a toroidal field, right?
Exactly. The biggest one on Earth.
0
Yeah,
point.
The biggest one on
the biggest one on Earth, but meeting your one as well.
And the Great Pyramid is also a crystal, by the way. The core structure of the Great Pyramid is granite. Granite is a 99% quartz crystal.
Yeah.
So you might as well say the Great Pyramid is a crystal. Well, it is. It's a crystal in a crystal grid. All the other sites are the same. Anyway, that's getting into a different topic. What I'm saying is the Great Pyramid sits at the very center of the Earth. So it's in the midst of, the middle of.
Center of the land.
Okay. Now, the Great Pyramid also marks the border of Upper and Lower Egypt.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
So the Great Pyramid sits on the border. It marks the border of Upper and Lower Egypt. But it also sits in the center of the Earth's landmass. So the only structure on Earth that can possibly be what they're talking about is the Great Pyramid. It's the only structure that's in the middle of and on the border of something at the same time. So that can be only the altar to the Lord in Egypt and the mountain to God in Egypt. That can only be the Great Pyramid.
Yes.
Okay? Now, sorry, go ahead.
But isn't it in the Bible called Mount Sinai? Or
Well,
am I
that's
just inferring that?
It's the
that's
old
no,
deflection.
you're right there. Yeah, yeah. So in the Babel, remember? Confusion. So in the Bible, it talks about Moses going up Mount Sinai. Yeah.
Akhenaten.
So Moses climbs up Mount Sinai. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he goes to the top of Mount Sinai. Right. And when he gets to the top, what does he do? Okay. He gets to the top of Mount Sinai and he meets God. We know that, because it tells us that he meets God. So what does he do when he meets God? Do you know what he does?
No.
He asks God a question. Do you know what question he asks?
What's the question?
He asks God, what is your name?
That's right.
And do you know what God answers? No. Although you never know. God says, I am that I am.
That's right.
It can also be translated as I am who I am. Okay? And that, translated from Hebrew letters, because it was written down in Hebrew, into English letters, is most generally translated as YHWH, which, when pronounced, which you're not supposed to,
Right.
makes the sound of the most close, because there is no sound. There is no sound to it. It can't be pronounced, and that's the whole point. But YHWH, which is abbreviation of I am that I am, or I am who I am, which is the name of God. An abbreviation, the most, that people often say is Yahweh, which is also called Jehovah.
Yes.
Now, okay, there's a lot of people going to be going, oh, hold on a minute, you're talking about the Jewish religion. Well, if you want to look at it that way, yeah, But let's kind of
But the
backtrack.
Jews are the ones who wrote the
Well,
Bible.
well, let's just backtrack about religion first. Let's pretend we're actually in a time, space, place, whatever you want to think of, before religion was created. All right. So let's say that doesn't exist yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So Moses climbs the mountain and asks God, "What is your name?" And God says, "I am that I am." Okay. And then Moses comes down the mountain. So what does he do? When he comes down the mountain,
He's not happy.
well, no. The first time he's cool, actually, when he comes down. So he comes down the mountain, and what does he come down with? The tablets. Yeah. So he comes down with what he has discovered, what he has learned. Yeah. So he comes down. And when he comes down, he sees the people that were waiting at the bottom of the mountain for him. And what are they doing? They're melting down the gold and they're making a golden calf.
That's it. They're worshipping an idol.
A golden calf. So what he does is he says, oh, okay, right, well, you know what? These people are not going to understand this set of tablets that I have here. So what does he do? He smashes them. Goes up the mountain, comes back down with another two. And the other two are called the Ten Commandments. So, what did he come down with first? What information did the first two tablets contain?
The
That he
emerald tablets?
decided, no, I'm not giving that. I'm not doing this.
They were too sophisticated.
I'm not doing this. So he went back up and got a different set, which became commandments.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I don't know if you remember, but I remember saying before in the podcast about how the 42 negative confessions of Maat in the book of Coming Forth by Light became what we know as the 10 Commandments. Yeah, because the 42 negative confessions of Maat, and I'm not going to rhyme them all off, but some of them are, I have not stolen, I have not lied, I have not killed. Okay? So they're called negative confessions because what you're saying is, I have not done this.
Right, exactly.
Okay?
Not because the act is negative.
No, because you're saying, I have not done this.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it could be possibly because, not necessarily because the act is, well, it could be that as well.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
you're
why
right.
I'm trying to say they're negative because you haven't done them.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
whereas,
and because the
whereas
act
the
itself
act can be neutral.
Yeah. Or
Even
you
though-
could look at it like it's.
I
like-
know.
Yeah.
It's just, you know.
It's exactly. But so the 42 negative confessions, in a sense, is saying they're negative because you're saying you're denying that you've done the act. If you know what I mean.
Even though the acts might not be nice things to do to
Exactly,
another person.
they could also be considered negative acts.
Yeah,
but
to infer that you're denying.
You're
doing
denying.
them.
Yeah.
That's what we're focusing on.
Yeah.
Them being negative.
So rather than the act itself being negative, yeah.
Yeah.
So the person is saying, I have not done this and I have not done that. So that's the 42 negative confessions of Matt. But when they were turned into the 10 Commandments, they were turned into, thou shalt not kill.
Yeah.
Thou shalt not. So it went from the person saying, I've never done this,
Oh.
to you do not do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It became a commandment.
Yeah.
Rather than
Yeah.
the person themselves volunteering and saying, I've never done that.
Yeah, an outside
I've never
person's
killed anyone. I've
saying
never
to
lied to anyone. I've never done any of that. Okay?
Yeah.
So it went from the person themselves volunteering this information. I've never done this. I've never done that. I've never done the other. You know? And went from that to the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbour's good. Thou shalt not lie.
Yeah, like an outside
Okay, so what
separate
happened?
being.
When Moses came down with the first set, he said, okay, he saw the people building the fatted calf, the golden calf, and he thought, okay, I'm not giving them this first set of tablets. Why? Why did he think that? Because, again, this is all metaphor, okay?
Yeah.
But because, and he also said something as well, and this is in the Bible, that, you know, people think is strange, that he said, melt the gold down and eat it. He said to the people, melt the gold down and eat it. You know?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, they were eating
Well, it is.
monatomic gold.
It is when you think of orbitally rearranged monatomic elements and made out of gold, which is actually what they were doing in ancient Egypt. And the purpose of it was because it was a medium, a substance that was used, like, say, for example, ayahuasca, like dimethyltryptamine, like any hallucinogen. Okay, I won't say hallucinogenic, but any substance that's used to induce an out-of-body experience.
That's natural. Or maybe not natural.
Yeah.
Well, it's natural. Yeah, it's natural. Yeah, and even the aromas would be natural.
Yeah.
You know, they're natural. They're naturally occurring. They do naturally occur. Anyway, we're getting off topic. But the point is, all that information is embedded in this. So, you know, he told the people to eat the gold, basically. You know. Now, obviously, that's until you understand about orbitally rearranged monatomic elements, it doesn't really make sense. But to eat the gold was the same thing as saying to somebody, take an ayahuasca trip. Do you know what I mean? Pretty much the same thing, you know. So that kind of brings me to the point about, you know, the mystery schools and why they were having kind of like all these initiations, and the initiations they were having like were death initiations, if you want to put it that way, you know.
Yeah.
So they were going into these places, caves. We'll call them caves, yeah, because you can say the Great Pyramid is a cave. You know, you can say like, you know, you can say like all the places in here we have in Ireland, like Newgrange, you know, the mound of hostages on Tara, like all the different types of mounds, like, you know, that you can call them caves.
Yeah.
You know? So really all the ancient structures, mounds all over the earth, pyramids, temples even, you can call them caves. You know, like the inner sanctuary of a temple is like a cave. It's always in darkness.
Yeah, exactly. And they're made out of stone.
Exactly. The inner sanctuary is always in darkness in a temple, and it's only illuminated at a certain time of the year by the sun shining in, like, for example, in Newgrange, when the light shines in on, you know, the 21st of December. Yeah. So,
they make a big deal about that, but it actually comes in like for 7 days.
Oh yeah, on either side.
They picked the 25th, but
Well,
it was for the winter solstice.
Well,
so
the whole point is
21st.
they don't actually tell you about the fact that the light shines in almost for a week.
Is it?
Not just one day.
Yeah.
And that's the actual amazing thing about Newgrange. Okay, I'm getting off topic here, but the builders of Newgrange
But just bear with us.
incorporated the 25,920 year processional cycle in the window box and the doorway that they built going into the actual cave. So in order to do that, you had to have extremely advanced architectural, astronomical,
astrotheology,
mathematical.
like all that, yeah.
I mean, you had to have some amazing knowledge to be able to do that.
Yes.
You know. Okay. Anyway,
To go back to Moses, or the
so
Moses up the hill came down, and everybody
Okay.
was...
Okay, so we're told that Moses went up Mount Sinai. So what I want to say is, let's change Moses to Akhenaten.
Yes.
Yeah.
yes,
So what we're really saying here is that Akhenaten went into the pyramid. Yeah.
Yeah.
And found God. And what did he do? He asked, "What's your name?"
That's it.
Yeah. And God said, "I am that I am." Or "I am who I am." So, if you want to say that let's say all the talking I do about, this lineage, and that's not even really important. That's in time,
yeah,
all ideas of lineage and ancestors and all of that all appears in time. Okay. But anyway, let's say the talk I do about the information that came from Egypt to Ireland through the lineage of Akhenaten and family and everything.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what I'm talking about. So let's say Akhenaten went into the pyramid.